We're now going to have the opportunity to have another story from the field, and we're very pleased to have Anna Ampania with us. Anna is a principal from Village School PK8. For those of you from outside of the United States, PK8 means that's a school that has pre-kindergartners through 8th grade students. And Anna is the principal from Twin Rivers Unified School District in North Highlands, California. Anna worked with a cohort of assistant principals using the habits of a systems thinker to address common challenges that they faced. So I'm very happy to introduce Anna, who will share with us now. Anna?
Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm just gonna let you know that my custodian is currently mowing the lawn, so hopefully the earbuds and that'll drown that out. So may I share my screen, please?
Sure, I'll stop sharing here. There you go.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so thank you for that introduction again. Like she said, I'm the new incoming principal to Village, but this past year I was a vice principal at Babcock Elementary, so that kind of begins my story. And what I want to share too is that Twin Rivers has a systems thinking impact team that we've had for the last 3 years. I have been on the professional development side for the first 2 years, and this past year I had the honor of getting to coach. And so when I was asked to coach this year, I said, well, I'm always that one who says, can I do something a little different? And I also have spent 5 years as an instructional coach, and you know, with what we know about professional learning communities, I said, you know, instead of me coaching one person, can I coach two and create a cohort? So we were a cohort of 3 vice principals with me being the coach. What was neat about this group, and that's why I'm excited that I got to be in a couple different breakouts already this morning, is that, you know, I may have had the most experience, and there was one VP who had some experience with systems thinking, was introduced to it several years ago. And then we had another VP who had heard of it and had 0 experience. So it's very neat to be in this group right now, having people who have both experience and those of you who are new to it, because I do think we all can gain from this. So hopefully that whether you're experienced or you're brand new, you'll get something from what I'm about to share from this story. And so my thinking really was, if I created this cohort, we really could be a VP PLC across 3 different schools, all brand new to being administrators, and in the middle of a pandemic, right, having to deal with distance learning as our first go, but that we could really use systems thinking as our framework to work through our different leadership moves, the different situations that we may have get put in front of us. So Wes brought up Michael Fullen earlier, and big fan of Michael Fullen and his 20 different books. And I love them because they're short, right? And so one of the ones that I really liked, and it's a little bit older, but it's Motion Leadership. And Fullen talks about simplexity. So one of the things I thought about when I started this cohort, I really thought about this, this card here, which is our leverage actions card. And really, what are those small, simple changes? That's that simplexity, right? What are those small things, the small changes you can put in your system that are going to make the most impact? And for a group that's diverse, where we had different entry levels coming into systems thinking, I wanted to make sure those small changes were going to be effective for all of us. So the habit cards, they've actually been my favorite thing since starting work with systems thinking 6 years ago. Mary knows this about me. Like I just have, and I love the brand new cards. They're so awesome. And the images are better now too, but it's the reflective questions on the back that really drew me. And maybe it's because of my experience as a coach too. The thing I love about these cards is when you're brand new, you're using these cards to reflect on your own thinking. And then now, you know, this is a forum for leadership. Now it's thinking, I kind of shift the thinking on the back. So where it talks about like, how do I, it's more like, how do we? So when I'm thinking about how to coach it, it really is how am I helping others become systems thinkers through using this card? And one of my favorite things that had happened several times this year is really what I thought of was, if I use these cards regularly with this cohort, and we met once a month for an hour, and then and more so specifically for systems thinking, but then, you know, we would collaborate on other things through the year. And I really thought, if I put the language in front of them, that they would be able to use it, and that really helps them become systems thinkers themselves. One of my favorite things that had happened, though, in a couple different separate meetings, separate from systems thinking, is one of my colleagues would say, okay, yeah, I'm up my own ladder. So right there, she's already starting to use the language. Can I just be up my ladder for a while? And then she's like, okay, so here's the thing. I'm really thinking about my own mental model in this situation. And she's realizing, wow, I'm realizing now that I'm talking through this with you, that I need to look at changes perspectives, because I'm realizing that there are other stakeholders in this situation. And so that right automatically made me go, okay, this was the right move for this group, was starting with those habit cards, because right away within the first month of us working with systems thinking, she was able to use that language more fluently. So, and really when I started this group, this actually came from, I think, our first meeting. I started with the structure generates its behavior. I wanted them to know right off the bat, be really clear on what our structure would look like working together, what behaviors I wanted to see, what were my outcomes. And so really I had two ultimate goals for this group, that my cohort would become more fluent in using the language of a systems thinker, and that through the use of habits or tools to help them plan their leadership moves, we could focus on current realities that we faced as new VPs, different situations, challenges, or opportunities, and then use the language from the habits and those tools to really plan our leadership actions. So those were my two goals for this group. And then during that, I only have a few minutes, but I did want to share some of the things that had happened. So during our first meeting, I decided to pair that system structure habit with, okay, so what's the deal? What are we doing together with the iceberg? Maybe it doesn't seem normal, but for me, it worked. So, because really what I thought about was, from my past experience, sometimes when we look at the tools, they can be really overwhelming. Like if you're looking at this tool in particular, there are a lot of pieces. And as I have grown in my practice as a systems thinker, I realized, wow, it's not about completing the whole tool. That really isn't the point. You know, otherwise it's kind of like graphic organizers, right? It's just a graphic organizer. If it doesn't invoke thinking, then maybe we're not doing it right. So really it depends on your purpose. So you could use part of the tools. So I think going back again to what are those small leverage actions? It was, okay, so what's my purpose today with that? So I can pair a habit card with maybe part of a tool, even if I needed to. So as an example for this one, what I ended up doing on our first adventure together was I went with, okay, so now we know, how we're going to operate, our system. And this is an example of what I did on that first day, my example, and then they did the same thing. And really, it's just, what are your current realities? What is in your system right now as a brand new VP at the beginning of the school year? And what was neat about this is each of us had our own slide, and we did our own reflections, and then we talked about it. But I really did use this as foundational data to start our work together. And then so throughout the year, I would pair a habit card with a tool. So if we were going deeper into the iceberg, then I would say, hey, let's pull out the mental model card. And which that's my little story earlier has a lot to do with her understanding mental models now and how that iceberg worked. If we were going to talk about the ladder of inference, which we did, then I pulled out the surface and test assumptions card. Stock and flow was my own personal growth that I wanted to make sure I could introduce it and be more fluent with it myself. And so I paired it with our leverage action card. So that's kind of how it helped as a practitioner myself. It helps me to start with the habits. And that's what I did with my cohort. And then also just even scaffolding a tool, maybe doing part of a tool to just ignite your thinking. So, I was told I only have 5 minutes, so I wanted to make sure that I at least shared some things that might help you maybe see, like, how did it go? So one is, our group actually at the end of the school year, we're asked to create our own story, our systems thinking and action story as our little VP cohort. And so this actually is a slide. Oh, I don't know if you can hear the leaf blowing right now. This is a slide that one of my cohort members did. So I have a slide for each of them that they did. So just to remind you, I just thought their testimony would help you see the impact that this little cohort made, and very excited because I believe that we're going to try and grow this model next year in our district. But so remember, the goals were for this to be like a collaborative approach where our cohort would use the language of a system thinker and also use habits or tools to guide leadership actions. So this iceberg slide was used to think through the current and desired structures and mental models using GoGuardian, which is our district's online monitoring tool. GoGuardian is our event. And this is what one member shared about the iceberg tool in her own words. This is the new one, the one who's brand new to systems thinking. So this is what she shared. She said, "The iceberg can help me flesh out my thinking around a situation. It's not about filling in a section. It's the process of thought. Our first iceberg activity which we did together referenced a parent complaint that I received about GoGuardian being used to block a student from a particular website. This process helped me slow down my thinking." So that was her big takeaway from that experience. And then I just have one more slide to share with you. And this is from my second cohort member, where she used mental models. That card, while they were actually, our district had a news in the middle of the pandemic and everything. We have to keep going, right? So we had a new student support plan process that each school had to implement. And so this is what she was using really to help with that rollout. She said, "As we intentionally planned for our rollout, we considered where our school has been, our current reality, and what mental models might affect the implementation. We considered current attitudes and beliefs of what may have occurred with past practices. We anticipated what questions or reactions we might encounter." And so this ends my time with you, and